An absolute unmitigated disaster in Minnesota. Now the season is over.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome in. Matt Dery with you. It is Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Christmas Day, Thursday, December 25th into Friday, December 26th. Thanks for making us your first listen, of course, and being with us here on this Christmas Day. We'll talk about today's loss in Minnesota, the turnovers, the offensive problems, the defensive issues. So many things to get to. Game balls? You think I'm handing out any game balls today? Please. This was a disaster. The Lions got embarrassed today on national TV or Netflix or whatever by the Vikings, 23-10. And now with the loss, they've been eliminated from the playoffs. The Lions are in last place in the division. They got swept by Minnesota. They are 1-4 in the division with one more game to go next week in Chicago. And I feel for Lions fans. I really do. Because today was torture. It felt like the past. It felt like the old days, and that's not a good thing. Locked On Lions today sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If our Wi-Fi connection is not great for the next week, I'm on vacation, as you can see. Little cabin, parts unknown. Bear with me. Bear with us. Shout out to our everyday listeners, our everydayers. Love all of you. Join the Everydayers Club, which we'll talk about. I don't even know where to start. This was so ugly. The Lions came into the game closing in on a record for fewest turnovers in a season with 8, with 2 games to go. And the Lions turned the ball over 6 times today. 6. Jared Goff's passer rating today was 65. 64.9. 2 interceptions, bunch of fumbles. Lions were outgained on the ground once again, 158-68. We talked about it with Luke Braun. If you missed the crossover with Luke Braun the other day, Luke was trying to sell me on there's no way the Vikings win this game. And there's no way the Vikings cover the 7.5. And I told him, I said, Luke, there's something wrong with the Lions. Something's not right. To quote the great R&B group UNV, something's going on. Something's not right. And I get it. Ben Johnson's gone. Aaron Glenn's gone. Frank Ragnow's gone. Taylor Decker didn't play today due to an illness. Sewell had to leave the game. You have Awashika playing right tackle. At one point in the game, you had, as your offensive line, Skipper, Mahogany, Iguakin, Ratledge, and Awashika. You ain't winning. You ain't winning jack with that. The Lions couldn't protect the quarterback. Goff was forced to be off his spot and rushing stuff. Threw some bad interceptions. He was horrific today. Horrific. The O-line was terrible. The run defense continued to give up chunk plays. And the season's over. And now the Lions have to go to Chicago next week. I'd rest everybody. I wouldn't even give a crap about this game. And so then you're probably going to lose and finish with a losing record at 8-9. And that would mean last place in the division. After all the talk before the season, is Chicago good enough to win the division? What about Green Bay? Oh, they got Micah Parsons. Oh, my God, now they're the favorites. Yeah, but don't count out the Lions. You had a Minnesota team today that was playing backup after backup after backup. They had a third-string quarterback playing. I got to look this up because I wanted to get this right. This was from Justin Rogers from Detroit Football Network earlier today. The Vikings are down to down 3 starting offensive linemen, their first 2 quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz, their second running back, Hawkinson, their top edge rusher in Grenard, and their starting safety in Josh Metellus. All those guys were out. Don't forget Christian Darrisaw out. Ryan Kelly out. Oh, but the Lions have all these injuries. Oh, my God, all these. So do the Vikings. Max Brosmer today, the Vikings starting quarterback, threw for 51 yards. 51 yards. The Vikings had 75 yards of total offense until Jordan Addison's 65-yard run on a reverse or on a stretch play, whatever you want to call it. Lions haven't been able to stop that in weeks. Motion man comes in motion, jet sweep. Lions haven't been able to stop it. And Kevin O'Connell on a third down knew what to do. He called that play, and boom, 20-10, game over. I am sick for Lions fans today. Sick. The ones that are the diehards that thought there would be a chance that this team could win their last 2, maybe the Vikings lose or the Packers lose their last 2 and sneak into the playoffs and then be some sort of dangerous team. No. Lions have lost 3 in a row. They've now made it to 500. They're now at 500 at 8-8. And Dan Campbell said after the game today that he and Brad Holmes have a lot of decisions to make. And that's true. There are guys on this team that played their last games as Lions today. Alex Anzalone had a concussion today. You got to figure that's got to be it for him. What do you do about Amik Robertson for next year? Veteran guys that have been around who probably are done as Lions. And it's sad because this has been an unbelievable run. I am not going to sit here today following a game and tell you that this thing is over by any stretch and that this team needs to rebuild and blow it up. Not at all. This was a bad season. And today was the game that just capped it off because it was so ugly and so gross to watch. Drop passes, failing to block people. The Vikings and Brian Flores the last couple of years kept getting schooled by Ben Johnson and Jared Goff. They picked up the blitzes. They found hot reads. They found hot receivers. They dialed things up, and the Vikings couldn't stop the Lions. And today, Minnesota capped off a season series sweep where they basically dominated Detroit in both games. And today they did it with a third-string quarterback who, like I said, threw for 51 yards. He completed 9 passes. And our crack research staff looked this up today. I got to find this. The Vikings' 23-10 win over the Lions was the fewest net passing yards by a team who won by at least 13 points since 1952. They had 3 net passing yards. 3. The Lions sacked Brosmer 7 times. The Vikings are the first team to win by at least 13 points while allowing 7 sacks since 2014. Embarrassing. Like, what happened? What is going on? David Montgomery ended up playing today, and there were a lot of rumors about him and the illness and the Instagram posts. He was trying to help save the season in the fourth quarter. Carrying the ball down the field, catching a screen pass. The Lions had to settle for a field goal to get to 13-10, needed a stop. And then Addison ran it down their throats to win it. Detroit finished with 10 points today against the Minnesota defense that has played well, don't get me wrong, but had a lot of guys out. Man, oh man. What is there to say? This was brutal, man. Absolutely brutal. And now it's back to the drawing board for next year. I never thought in a million years that we would be going into week 18 talking about next season, but we are. And as Dan Campbell said after the game, you don't win games losing the turnover battle 6-0. This was just unlike anything we've seen in years by a Dan Campbell coach team. And it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Why did the turnovers happen? What happened today? We will get into that coming up next here on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. Christmas Day debacle in Minnesota. 23-10 Lions fall to the Vikings. More after this on Locked On Lions. All right, Locked On Lions for today, as we told you earlier, brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Yes, if I could just one time find our beautiful graphic here for my friends on YouTube, I would love to tell you about Prize Picks, and there it is. Yes, indeed. Holiday season, one of the best times for sports. We got bowl games going on. We got huge basketball matchups. Christmas Day, it's the unofficial start to the NBA season. Playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement in the holiday sports schedule. You can create a lineup, it takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. Plus, deposits and withdrawals, quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, everybody. We've told you about our Everydayer Club for a little while. All right. But we appreciate you making Locked On Lions your first listen every day. And we want to thank you for making the Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Now, if you haven't already, check out the new Locked On Lions Everydayer Club. Access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Lions, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server. I was on there tonight during the game, hobnobbing with some of you and typing and chatting away. That includes a group chat just for listeners of the show and checking things out on the Discord and talking about the Lions. It's fun. Go to lockedonlions.simplecast.com. That's lockedonlions.simplecast.com. Actually, hold on a second. Because I butcher this every single time, I want to make sure I get this right. Supercast, lockedonlions.supercast.com. lockedonlions.supercast.com. Head there now. Check out the show notes on YouTube or on the audio show to learn more. Got to give a shout out to one of our everydayers, Turner Batdorf, who hit me up today. Poor Turner. That guy just loves his team. He and Jody, his father, were watching the game today. And love all of our everyday listeners and appreciate all of you for checking us out daily here on Locked On Lions. Lions fall to the Minnesota Vikings today in Minnesota, the whiteout game there at US Bank Stadium. Vikings have now won 4 in a row to get to 8-8. The Lions fall to 8-8. They've dropped 3 in a row. Vikings win 23-10. Aaron Jones ran for 53 yards, Ty Chandler 24 yards. What about Gary Chandler? Brosmer had 16 yards rushing and Jordan Addison 65 on that jet sweep for a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs today continued to struggle. 17 carries, just 41 yards, had a very costly fumble, averaged just 2.4 yards a carry. And David Montgomery, 10 carries, 25 yards, averaged 2.5 a carry. Goff threw for 197, 2 picks, was sacked 5 times. Vikings just kept loading the box. We'll talk about that in a second. Amon-Ra, 8 catches, 68 yards. Tesla had a nice touchdown today. Lions held Justin Jefferson. If I would have told you coming into today that the Lions were going to hold Justin Jefferson to four catches for 30 yards, no touchdowns, and just 5 targets, you would have told me, how many points did the Lions win by? But see, that's where it all started today for Detroit. 6 turnovers, 2 picks, 4 fumbles, and it all started up front with this offensive line. And yes, one of the carries, Jahmyr Gibbs was running, and Wilson, the linebacker, ripped the ball out. But the Lions could not get any space, any breathing room all day. All day. No space, no breathing room, no nothing. And it all starts up front. And we're going to talk about this a lot next week. We're going to talk about this in the offseason. We're going to hear from Brad Holmes after the season because you know he's going to speak to the media. And the biggest thing that the Lions need to address and figure out is, what are they going to do with the offensive line? Where is it going from here? Because man, oh man, the loss of Frank Ragnow will go down as one of the biggest losses in this franchise's history. It just will. And I get it. The Lions traded Matthew Stafford, and the next year he won a Super Bowl with the Rams. I get it. Barry retired and told Bobby Ross to kick rocks, and the Lions started Ron Rivers the next year, and it was an unmitigated failure. What Frank Ragnow meant to this team and how good he was at center and how he settled everything down for multiple years. The Lions today, one of their fumbles was Kingsley Eguakin, and this poor kid in 2 games. I know his PFF grade wasn't terrible last week, but man, did he struggle today. Botched a snap on a 4th and 1. There were a couple of fumbled snaps today. It was, one of them hit Goff in the leg. It was a disaster. I keep saying disaster. It's true. But if you don't block up front, if you can't snap a football to your quarterback on multiple occasions, you're not going to win. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing Minnesota. I don't care if you're playing U of D Jesuit. I don't care if you're playing Minnesota Golden Gophers. You ain't winning when you turn it over 6 times. And today looked like a comedy show. It looked like the Lions of old. I'm not going to use the 3 letters. I'm not going to go there. You guys want to do it? You want to put it on YouTube, on our comments? Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the page. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going there. This team has too much pride. They've done too many good things the last 3 years. To all of a sudden, we got to revert back to old catchphrases. I don't think that's where this team is going. They need to restock, and it starts up front on both lines. I know Aleem McNeil today got hurt early in the game, and he was out. I'll tell you one thing. Roy Lopez played as hard as he could. He did the best he could. And same with Aiden Hutchinson. 2 sacks, now up to 13.5 on the year. That's pretty darn good. Okay? But by the end of the game, these guys are exhausted. They're cooked. And there's no depth. None along the defensive line or offensive line. None. There just isn't. DJ Reader today had 1 tackle. Tyleek Williams today had 1 tackle. Aleem McNeil, once again, and I know he got hurt early in the game, did not register a tackle. Meantime, the Vikings had 5 sacks, and they were everywhere. But they knew, if we can get in Goff's face, if we can buy, and it all starts up front. And you look across that offensive line for next year. Who do we know is a lock to be playing? There's 1 lock, Penei Sewell. Taylor Decker was sick today and couldn't play. Got an illness. That's not like the 3rd straight show. My alarm has gone off. Terrible. My fault. Decker was sick today. There was an illness going around the locker room. David Montgomery had an illness 2 days ago. Thank God he played today. Decker was out. Christian Mahogany, left guard next year. I think so. I don't know. Center, who knows? You're hoping Ragnow comes out of retirement again, and this time is playing and plays a full season. And right guard, I got to be honest. I mean, Tate Ratledge was drafted in the second round. He was a rookie, but there's a lot of struggle going on right now there. A lot. And I'm rooting for that kid. I don't think he's bad, but is he locked in a guaranteed spot as a starter next year? You'd hope so. Maybe he's the center. They want him to be the center earlier in the year. But this team got pushed around the last 5-6 weeks. And where this club was so strong and where it always hung its hat the last few years, despite all the talent that they have and the weapons that they have. Tesla made a heck of a play today. St. Brown's excellent. J-Mo's good. Jameer Gibbs is awesome. David Montgomery's a pretty damn good player. Sam Laporta went healthy. Damn good. Jared Goff, I had a horrible game today, but had a really good year again. But if you can't block, you can't tackle, and you can't stop people at the point of attack, you're in trouble. And this team has got to reload along the offensive and defensive lines and get that figured out. There's no reason why, without Jordan Mason today and with Aaron Jones on one leg, and I get it, 65 of the 158 was a Jordan Addison touchdown run, but still, the Lions' run defense has been booty for a while now. Man, they got to find a way to get better there. Tyleik Williams, I mentioned before. I mean, DJ Reader, this is it for him. He's not going to be back next year. They got to figure this out. So at this time every week, we hand out game balls on a post-game show. I'm not giving out any game balls. I will tell you a couple of people I thought played okay. I will do some honorable mention game balls, but that's really about it. All right. 23-10, Lions lose to the Minnesota Vikings. We'll do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. All right, Matt Dery back with you. We have been with you for doing the show, Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network now for 10 seasons. I have seen it all since we started this podcast back in 2016. We went through the Jim Caldwell era, which just wasn't good enough. The Quintricia stuff, which was god-awful. Year one of Dan Campbell. Year two when I threatened to leave the show. All these things. And here we are at 8-8. And this club kind of just spiraling right now. And I think that it's kind of time for this franchise and a lot of these players to take a step back. All right. I'm not saying that Amon-Ra St. Brown needs to stop doing his podcast. I'm not going to tell you that Aiden Hutchinson shouldn't be pushing his merch. All right. But it's time now to get back to where this team is gritty. This team is working hard, out muscling, out fighting the opponents. I think they got a little bit big for their britches. And that starts with the general manager all the way down. The head coach too. Dan Campbell was calling plays today like he had Ragnow and Zeitler and Glasgow. He didn't. He had a Guakin, a one-legged Mahogany, and a rookie in Ratledge. Halfback dive plays, 4th and 1 where you barely get it. David Montgomery got a 4th and 1 in the second quarter, and it led to the Tesla touchdown. But the way Dan Campbell is calling these plays and the way these plays are designed, it's designed for last year's team. Except last year's team had really good offensive line. And this year's team doesn't. And you got to adjust to that. I'm not saying Dan Campbell has an ego and he's an ego man. I don't think so. I just think from the top down, this was a failure. They failed this offseason to address some needs. They told you, we're good. Oh, another edge rusher? We're good. Oh, replacing Ragnow? No, we're good. Yeah, no. Moving up to trade for Tesla. And look, he's a good player. And he made a great catch today on the touchdown. but the last 2 years of drafting have not resulted in much. Cooper DeJean made the Pro Bowl for the Eagles at cornerback. I told you 2 years ago I wanted him badly for the Lions, and the Lions passed on him to take Terrion Arnold, who still might be a good player, but for the first 2 years, underwhelming and injured. And the Lions have seemingly drafted these guys that have had injury concerns going back to college, whether it was Broderick Martin, whether it was Hendon Hooker, whether it was Ennis Rakestraw, whether it was Levi Onwuzurike, and it came back to bite them. They were not deep enough today. Today was second and third stringers against second and third stringers, and the Vikings' depth was better than the Lions. This Minnesota team isn't good. They don't have a quarterback. You telling me it's a lock that J.J. McCarthy is their guy next year? They've been through McCarthy. They've been through Wentz, Brosmer. Lions got swept by Minnesota. Think about this. Swept by Minnesota in 2 games. The win at Ford Field November 2nd, McCarthy threw for 143. That's it. Brosmer today threw for 51 yards. The Lions lost both games. Like, that's unheard of. Brosmer is terrible. All right. Normally I hand out game balls. Nobody's getting a game ball today. Today was an embarrassment. Some guys that I liked that played decently today. Jack Fox, a couple of big punts today. Love the punt god. We'll always worship the punt god. Who else was decent today? Daniel Thomas. I don't know. Tesla. Jake Bates. I mean, this was a terrible performance all around. Aiden Hutchinson had 2 sacks, but he's not getting a game ball. Khalif Raymond had some decent returns today. Will he be back next year? That's another one. Oh, gosh. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Thanks for gutting this one out today. Appreciate all of our everyday listeners and all of you. We're going to be back next week. We're going to talk about the Bears. We're going to do all that. But just a shocker how this kind of just completely swan dived on us. Matt Dery with you, Locked On Lions. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Peace out.